city manager go through our agenda, please.
Reach there. Okay, thank you, Mayor. We'll start on item number 1, approval of the minutes of the last week's meeting.
Good.
Moving on, item number 2, and of course item number 3 directly related, but public hearing considering the removal of stuff at 823 North Van Buren. If you want, you can turn. We've got a photograph of that fire burned property.
So when removing this, would it also be removing debris from the yard?
I would suggest so, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But we have to, this time they're separate, I guess, because they're individual, different ownerships. I didn't even pay attention to that.
No, they're both estates, but legal thinks we need to do them separate. They're two divisible tracts.
Okay.
It's not one lot.
Isn't this where that guy had the addresses confused from some the other day?
No, that was the one up on North.
So this one is
Arthur.
Yeah.
Arthur. Yeah.
Yeah, 5.
That's 823. This one burned on April 26, 2011. If you go to item number 3, which is 825 North Van Buren, the interesting thing about it burned twice. December of 09 and again on April 15, 11, and then 2 weeks after that, the one next to it burned. So.
Just like going on Arthur Street. Is it ours? Or is it something else?
Easier to start a fire than a flood.
Yeah. Especially in family.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah. Right.
So a properly non-committal answer, Marcus.
Yeah, that was good. Well, it's just interesting.
Yeah, you know. Quite down there.
They have
They'll
that
just
up your neighborhood.
block off the boulevard there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so these will be your follow your script, your formal process, and then finally an action suggesting what the commission might choose to have done with those 2 properties.
Okay.
And Marcus, whatever we find, you want us to read it, put it in record.
Yes, because otherwise the public isn't on notice of what it was you decided.
All right.
If we had a scroller across the bottom of the screen, I guess we could scroll it, real by number, but.
All right, we'll go ahead and start at the top here on the consent agenda and see if we can work our way through it.
You better not remove anything for separate consideration.
We'd have fun with it. The entire consent agenda is separate consideration today. Water well pump improvements, and that's a generic term. These are actually the big pumps in the Masterson pump station. So these are the big boosters. This will take the rotating elements or the impellers out of pump 2 and pump 3, have those rebuilt, have 2 new ones manufactured and put in their place, and then we'll put the rebuilt ones on the shelf so that we'll have spares.
That's smart.
That is smart. Emmett and his crew are to be commended. You know, these typically have about a 6-month lead time because they're manufactured specific to the pumping units, and I presume these are the original housings from '57.
Yes, sir, they are.
So they've been pushing water to us for a long time. And we rebuilt number 1 last year.
That's correct.
The year before.
That involves shaft and bearings and all of that, but this is just to be able to rotate, change out those impellers if needed.
Are you saying these pumps have been pumping since '57?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Well, 2 of them have. One of them was added, I believe, at a later date.
But the 2 that were replacing the impeller system and then putting the rebuilds on the shelf have been going since '57.
I think
Well, that's the first part there.
1 and 2 are the originals, and 3 was added later.
Yes, yes. The 1 and 2 are the same size, and 3 is a little bit larger. Our oldest pumps in the system, however, are at the Bottom Street pump station. They're over 80 years old.
27? 28.
27.
1927.
Good grief.
We did one of our water presentations to the commission, Tim probably remembers, 4 or 5 years ago, and we had a bunch of photographs of both your original system and, of course, the Bottom Street pump station, which is a beautiful brick building. was one of them, and we had photographs of the pump house out at City Lake,
Right.
also
Same day.
same time frame.
How long does it take to rebuild one, Emmett?
Bottom? Bottom?
To
Oh,
rebuild one.
but,
Mhm.
if you have to do a complete rebuild and not just change out, the rotating element, you could get it back on an emergency basis in a couple of weeks compared to the 6 months for a new one.
If you have the parts on hand.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
So, this also supports the program the commission approved several years ago. We now stock spare pumps and motors to actually go downhole in the wells. We've experimented with that flexible, continuous roll discharge piping, and of course have our own rig to get that stuff in and out and keep your production capacity up. Your system can make more than 100 million gallons a day, 30 straight days without endangering anything if it has to. Unfortunately, we're nowhere near that demand, but you have that capability.
Have we used that fully unit yet, or has it only been used by Fremont?
No, sir, it's been used by us.
Okay.
Several wells now. And then we have this, what he's talking about is that lightweight production pipe made out of the hose. That was installed not too long ago at what we call well 416, which is west of Coulter on 45th. There's a big fence on your left as you go west, and that big fence has a well on the inside. It has that new production piping. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir.
Probably over-answered it as usual.
But that's usually right.
If that stuff proves up, though, it's got some tremendous benefit because
Yes, it does.
you're not pulling it up 20 feet and unscrewing a piece of pipe and pulling it up. You can pull this out, continual roll, and put it back down in the same manner.
Sort of like one of those new hoses they're advertising with the strings.
So,
It's a little stylish than that.
As seen on TV. Yeah.
And if you buy now, well, it's
But wait.
Okay.
But wait.
Just pay separate shipping and handling.
That's it. That's
Well, we need to ship this at Walmart.
we don't deal with those.
We don't get, that's why they make their money over shipping and handling.
Any questions on the action side of the agenda for today? Okay. We included in your packets your report. And I'm a little early, but I wanted to get this out of the way so that we didn't take up, here's some more copies. Take up budget review time later on. Plenty for everybody. Starting late last summer, continuing through the budget, we have held discussions on asking your consideration to let the city take advantage of the changes in state law, and they weren't even recent changes, they've been made some years ago, to raise what's called the small purchasing limit from the $25,000 to the $50,000 that was in state law. Subsequently, as we adopted the budget, we also adopted the change in that policy. The commission said, good, and at least for that first year, maybe continuing thereafter, why don't you send us a report and let us see where these things fall, what they are, kind of what's happening in that gap that's now on there. I think you can probably see since October the reduction of the number of items on your consent agenda. And had we not made the change in policy, the entire 2.5 pages of this report would all have then been action items on your consent agenda.
Well, not those under 25.
There's nothing on here under 25 when you take the cumulative.
Oh, I see, but okay.
Yeah, it's just how they sorted it. But yes, a single purchase under 25, no, it should have been.
You're right again, Jim.
As usual.
And we'd be pleased to try to answer any questions that you might have.
I didn't see it.
I think we did the right thing.
And staff staff appreciates it. I mean, this is really, you know, we still go through the competitive process to be sure we're getting the best buy. Once we have that, we can now get it awarded and moving within a week. When, you know, prior, we couldn't do that.
How many of those last officers, it seems like about a million radios, how many of them are there?
Well, yeah, I think there were 7, and we added 1 for the upcoming year for Canyon, so we'll have 2 in Canyon, and I think 6 in AISD. I think there's 1 for high school plus 2 more. I may not be exact on that, but those radios are expensive. All the radios we got are expensive.
Items, go ahead, excuse me.
By the time you do the narrow band and the digital capable radios, they're just crazy. $2,500 handhelds are cheap for public safety. Same radio non-public safeties, $600-700.
My question was, items that qualify for a grant or for a participation by TxDOT or by somebody, do those have to come before us for approval before they can qualify for those? In other words, something's not falling through the cracks simply because it's under a certain limit. So I guess my second question is, are any of these items further supported by some kind of a grant? Like, for instance, I see ammunition for the SWAT, and then there's another item over here for the public PA system for shooting range, I think.
PA system at the range was the final spin out of the 2007 CO money.
Yeah.
It was the leftovers thereof. Ammunition is never grant funded. A part of those radios may well have been, and typically the way the grants will work, depending on who it is that's giving the money, they either require the governing body to approve the application, and then you're good if you go through, or not the application. Staff makes the application, you accept.
I see.
And it's different from all the various ones. But then once you have the grant funding, you're obligated then to follow your standard purchasing policy. We don't do it different. I think the only exception is transit still has a hub or a DPE set aside. Isn't that right? Yeah. Transit has preference on some of that money. But that's the only one I can think of that we have to handle differently.
Now, the motorcycle means you added to fleet, or will you be replacing or replacement?
Those are the final ones that we added out of the budget the year prior.
The only suggestion I would have, I like this report because we can see what's been done, is to just clump them by departments.
Okay, we could do that. These were done by date.
Yeah, so if we can do them by departments, we'll still have the dates, but if they're by department, see how much each department is able to spend funds. For this, what we paid. But I think you did good.
Thank you, and very much appreciate y'all letting us do this. It really has helped. So the motorcycles are obviously roughly 15 each. That came out of the budget, capital budget. That was adding the 12th and 13th to finish that out. Some of them are just supplies, medical waste disposal, stuff like that. The air cylinders for fire, that's part of the routine replacement program. Furniture for SWAT and narcotics, that came out of budget as we finished up the last of that CO money. The fire preemption, that was to cover the new trucks, probably in Station 12 is my guess, for the fire department. Trees, you see that every year.
Has mine come in? My preemption kit for my car.
Yeah, it's on the way. When would you like that installed?
As soon as it gets here.
You want the sirens too?
No.
Firefighter uniforms, annual contract, we do that every year. X-Mine tires. Those are those gigantic tires for those pieces of equipment out at the landfill. And that was likely only 6 tires would be my guess. Janitorial.
And that's what I was wondering, are any of these emergency purchases that you didn't know about, city landfill?
There may have been, I don't recognize any of them on here that are emergency. Emergencies that are 50 or more, I approve and then come back to you the immediate next meeting and say, gee, look what I did. Please concur with such.
Is that an accent on the third block?
Yes, that would be annual contract.
That was an accent. Daniel?
Yeah, that would be annual. That's the real fine, clean sand that's used at the golf courses, some of the parks, and a lot of the athletic fields. It seems like not that many years ago that contract was probably only $25,000. It's delivery on that stuff that kills you. Back page, learning system for Station 13. That's the locution system, that new system we bought that not only tells the firefighters you've got a call, you need to get in the truck, it starts telling them what the call is as they go to the truck. So by the time they sit down, they've already got a decent idea of where I'm going and what's happening wherever it is I'm going. And there's one that flashes lights.
Does that mean it's ringing?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did you answer?
I hung up on the phone.
That's why they keep calling back.
Take care of that. I think they get the message.
Why Marcus is never home. Great invention.
You see
In other words, I
the
don't
individual
call
pieces, individual pieces of mobile equipment there on the back page. That PA system, again, I think that was the final spin out of the 07 CO money. AC5 is the asphalt emulsion you use during the summer, so that's the delivery contract. You actually buy it at the depots based on whatever that day's price is, but then you pay separate to get it moved in here. GPS equipment for solid waste, that's actually out of the landfill.
Makes sense.
That's good.
We'll keep it up, and the system accommodates doing this report pretty easily, and we can sort by department if you're not saving next year. Interesting to see if that grows, because this represents 10 months. No, 9 months. Questions on either the discussion or the action agenda? If not, Mayor, we could move to a closed session.